Hi, this is an analysis of IIFT 2019. Now, IIFT this year went online. Along with that, they have also changed the pattern of the examination. Until last year, they had around 6 questions. This Until last year, they had around 6 sections. From in this edition, they had 4 sections, namely quantitative ability. This particular section this year had 25 questions. Second, verbal ability and reading comprehension. This section this year had 35 questions. Logical reasoning and data interpretation. This section this year had 30 questions. And lastly, general awareness, which had 20 questions. Now, the marking scheme for quantitative ability, verbal ability and reading comprehension, and reasoning and DI was 3 marks were allotted for every correct answer and 1 mark was deducted for every incorrect answer. That is, for general knowledge, 1.5 marks were awarded for every correct answer and 0.5 was deducted for every incorrect answer. Now, looking at each of these sections, coming to quantitative ability first.
Like every year, this year as well, the quantitative ability section in IIFT was moderate to difficult. There were few questions which were difficult and they act as a roadblock, but there were questions around 10 to 12 questions which were easy or easy to moderate. So if a student is smart enough, would have left the difficult one, which were not only difficult, but they were also lengthy at times. There were 5-6 lines questions, right? So let's look at the questions which were a student should have easily managed. 2 questions on time and work were easily doable. Then there was one question on divisibility, which was a cakewalk question, could have been done by observation. Then there was a question based on percentages, where uh, there was it was a restaurant, and 70 some percentage would want to visit again, and they rated as excellent, fair, and good, and everything. So that question was little lengthy, but then it was a very easy question. The students would have attempted it. Then there was a question based on averages, where the average of few cricketers were given, and then after few matches the average got changed, and again that question was easy, so should have been attempted. Then a question on divisibility was easy. A question on set theory was easy. Then there was a question on circle, where you have to find the angles. That would be classified as easy, and cost to to construct a tunnel, that would also be termed as an easy question. Then there was a question on clock, which was very straightforward, and again height and distance question would be termed as easy. There was one more question, quadratic equation. Many students probably would have literally skipped it, because in that question, a modulus sign was given. But it was simply a quadratic equation, and you need to simply remember that modulus cannot turn out to be negative. That's it. And that question was as easy as any solving quadratic equation. So overall, in around 40 odd minutes, student could have easily attempted around 10 to 12 odd questions with an accuracy of 80%, and the ideal expected cutoff would be around 11 odd marks, considering the fact that the sectional cutoff in IIFT are always relatively very less. Now let's move on to the next section, that is reading comprehension and verbal ability.
Okay. So in this section, that is verbal ability and reading comprehension, there were 16 questions based on reading comprehension and 19 based on verbal ability. The 16 questions of reading comprehension were spread across 4 passages. Of these 4 passages, 2 passages, one based on Japan and another based on democratic and undemocratic governments, were quite easy, and all 8 questions could have been easily attempted, right? Then there were 3 questions which are based on crosswords and 1 question which was based on match the following, one vocab question rather based on match the following. Now in these questions, the trick was option elimination. A smart student would have been easily able to identify that 3 options were surely incorrect and the remaining one has to be the answer no matter what. right? Now, apart from that, there were 3 questions on idioms and phrases which could be termed as difficult. In parajumbas, there were 3 questions, of which, or rather, all 3 questions had 2 options which were quite confusing and tricky, right? There were 4 fill in the blanks questions and 1 grammar-based question. All 5 of them were pretty easy, right? So overall, the verbal section can be termed as easy to moderate. Ideal attempts would have been somewhere around 22 to 24 in say 35 minutes. And considering the fact that IIFT has very low sectional cutoffs, right? We believe that the sectional cutoff for verbal would be around 22 marks. So now coming to the section of logical reasoning and data interpretation.
So this section was clearly bifurcated into 2 parts. The first 16 questions were on data interpretation, which had 4 sets. The last 14 questions were on logical reasoning. Let's look at the sets on data interpretation. The first set was based on food pattern and the style pattern and everything, which had a bar graph and 2 line graph. Uh, the numbers were easy because all of them were in the multiple of 100. And the question was to identify which is the smallest ratio and the largest ratio and the difference. And the question was very straightforward. So this was one set that students should have attempted. The second set, which we termed as easy, was based on it was a table. It was a tabular data given where 2 cities were there, and in each city there are 4 different types of styles of t-shirts which were there, which were available in different colors. And this set was purely based on counting. So there was no calculation. It was only and only adding and doing subtraction. That's it. So again, this set would be termed as an easy one. Should have definitely attempted. The third set was based on there were customer IDs given and there were 5 products were given, and it was a customer is either buying this or is not buying. This set has few information given in one or the 2 questions, and those questions were little tricky. I would say, I would not say difficult, little tricky, but otherwise this set would be considered as easy to moderate. And the lastly, the fourth set was on bar graph. There were 3 bar graph kits, and this set has basically a lengthy calculation. This set has work distribution. Then it was operational cost was given, cost difference were given, and there were different parameters were given. It was lengthy calculation based, so should have been avoided. The other 3 sets could have been definitely attempted, especially the first 2 were cakewalk. Now coming to the next 14 question, the first 4 questions were on, so there was mixed information given. So there was a blood relation, family tree was there. Then there was profession of each of the family member, and they were sitting around a circular table. So it was a little lengthy. So could have been avoided uh, if students are, if they are familiar with such a kind of questions, then only should have been attempted. Otherwise, be considering 3 parameters should have been avoided, because at the end the last 10 questions were very easy. The next question, which had 3 questions in a set, which was of linear arrangement, 9 people are arranged in a linear direction. The only change here was that it was the direction was not given with respect to you, it was given with respect to the reflection, because they're standing in front of a mirror. So that was the only tricky part about it, but then again, it could have been correct very easily. The next 2 questions were based on the lifts and the shift timings and everything. Little calculation, little you need to write down all the condition and everything. So would be termed as maybe not easy, but maybe easy to moderate, or maybe a moderate one. The next set was based on set theory. Now the set theory question, it was basically 3 sets are given and the constraints are given that this is double of this, and there are few members here and few here. Total was given, and then you have to find out how many of them, and one of the set can be maximum, or what could be the intersection of 3 of them or something. So again, it was to be considered as an easy set considering there were 2 questions given. Then there was one question on number series which was very easy. I'm sure any average student would have cracked it. That was one question that everyone should have definitely attempted. Not attempting this would be a would be a very huge penalty, I would say, because you would easily lose those 3 marks. The next 2 questions were on input and output. Uh, I would not say it was difficult, probably it was moderate, but if a student can identify the pattern, then it was very easy. And it was a traditional input output question, not something very different. So it was pattern based input output. Yes, should have been attempted. By spending around 35 odd minutes, I'm sure should a well prepared student would have attempted around 14, 15 odd questions. And the cutoff for this section, we're expecting it to be around 16 marks. Now let's look at the next section, that is general knowledge. That's easy.
Okay, so this year IIFT did a very brilliant thing of balancing static as well as current affairs. So out of 20 questions in this section, 9 questions were based on static and 11 were based on current affairs. Now, of all of these, the questions like the ones based on, say, Udan, the ones based on, say, IT 83 being the biopic of which of the following celebrities, the ones based on, say, the shoe companies, Adidas, Reebok, Puma, right? The one based on, the one based on
Match the following, Seaport.
match the following and Seaport, right? Can be termed pretty easy, right? Whereas there were certain questions of probably a student might not have any idea of, like questions like the names of festivals and associated states, right? The questions on the which countries do not share border or rather share borders with uh, Afghanistan, right? So all in all, in this particular section, somewhere around 6 to 8 questions could have been attempted easily in a time span of say only 10 minutes.
10 odd minutes.
Fair enough. So now let us look at the sectional cutoffs and the overall cutoffs, the cream of this discussion.
Okay, so as discussed, the quant section we're expecting the sectional cutoff to be 11 marks. Verbal ability and reading comprehension we're expecting it to be around 22 marks. Data interpretation and reasoning we're expecting around 16 marks, and general knowledge, general GK section we're expecting around 5 marks. The sectional cutoff are less because that's been the trend in IIFT. Now we'll have to think of, we'll have to look at a couple of things. The first thing, that IIFT went online till last year's, it was paper based exam, and this year it is online. So obviously the cutoff should vary. And secondly, instead of 6 sections, there are only 4 sections. So a student has to focus only on 4 sections rather than focusing on 6 sections, trying to balance the mark so that the cutoff get clear in all 6. Now this time it's only 4 sections. So considering all this factor and parameters, we believe that the around 55 plus questions should have been good attempt, and with around 80% accuracy should have been a good accuracy, and we are expecting predicting cutoff to be around 117 marks. So I guess that's it from our end, and we would request you to read the detailed in-depth analysis, the link for which is mentioned in the comment section. Thank you very much.
Thank you.